programs, and welcome to the Awesome Friday podcast for whatever the date is. Today's February the 13th, 2022. My name is Matthew. I'm joined as always by Simon. Say hello, Simon.
Hello and welcome, and I hope everyone is doing well today.
Yes.
The most generic
I said this before, but at some point I'm going to have to write down an intro script because I think I've said it differently. This is our 30th episode since we relaunched or something like that, and I think I've said it differently and out of order 30 different times.
No, I disagree with you. I don't think there should be a script. I think it should be organic and slightly scrappy, and heartfelt and meaningful.
Well, it's at least one of those things. This week we're going to be talking about slightly different things. First, we're going to cover a film, and then we're going to talk about the Oscar nominations.
Yes.
But first, how are you, Simon?
Well, first thing I want to say is that if you're listening to this, and usually listening to our gaming podcast as well, apologies for it not existing this week. I did the podcast. Unfortunately, my recording device recorded the first 30 seconds of that podcast, and I noticed this at the end of the podcast 30 minutes later. So trust me, my dog had a really insightful half an hour about the comparison of Sifu versus Godhand. So when I find some time and the energy, I will re-record it. But it's been one of those weeks. It's just busy. Oh dear, sleepy. I'm fine. It's busy. At least the sunshine's coming out now. I actually did some gardening today.
Wow. It's true. We are in the season that in Vancouver is best described as the spring of deception, which is the sunny 10-day period in February that comes after the second snow and after the third rain, but before the fourth rain, it's sunny for somewhere between 5 and 10 days. That's our spring of deception.
Wow, you've lived here long enough to be down with that rhythm, have you? So that's nice. It's nice to have a bit of sun and sow my wild seed all over my garden, which was nice. Well, it's wild seed. I bought it from.
That sounds dirty.
It was dirty. It's very soily. But it's fine. How are you? What have you been up to?
Oh, I'm really terrible. I've been working full time, and also I'm taking some classes which are going really badly for me right now because work has been so busy. And it's just February, so annual mental health challenges have cropped up. So, but I'm here, and this is the thing I enjoy most doing each week. So I'm looking forward to doing it. Hooray!
All right, Gleam in the Darkness. What are we talking about this week?
So first, we're gonna talk about a movie that technically is one of last year's releases, but is somewhat timely for us. The Pedro Amaldóvar film Parallel Mothers, starring Penelope Cruz, which is just coming to Canadian theaters. I think at this upcoming, it either just premiered on this past Friday or it's premiering this coming Friday. And off the top of my head, I can't remember which. So let me just look that up. And then we're going to talk about the Oscar nominations, which were announced this week for the 94th Oscar celebration. Which are we gonna live blog those again? What are we gonna do this year, Simon? I'm gonna leave it to you.
You put me on the spot. What date is the Oscars? Tell me again.
It is March the 27th, I believe.
I very much enjoy live blogging the Oscars, so I think if we are able to do that, then we should do that.
Good. Yeah, and the Parallel Mothers arrived in Canadian theaters in Toronto and Vancouver specifically on the 11th. That is yesterday for us, and for you listening, it'll be the day before yesterday. So if you're in either of those cities, you have a chance to see it on the big screen, assuming that it is safe where you are to do that. And as I understand it, it is going to be expanding to other cities over the next couple of weeks. Which is sort of the way that art house films go. Now, this one played at a number of festivals last year. It opened the Venice Festival, and I believe it played at, I want to say Telluride and a couple of other ones. And Penelope Cruz, it's just going to be a good segue because Penelope Cruz has been nominated for Best Actress for the film.
Oh, has she? I didn't
She
know that.
has? Yeah.
Fantastic.
I guess you're looking at the nomination list blind next, which is going to be fun for me. And the story concerns Penelope Cruz she's a photographer, and she has a brief tryst with a man, and she gets pregnant. And in the hospital where she gives birth, she shares a room with a young woman who is also pregnant. They give birth around pretty much at exactly the same time, and then it follows their story from that point as, shockingly enough, parallel mothers.
Oh God, I just worked out the title. Of course,
I know, right?
they're both parallel.
Yeah. When they stand upright, they are parallel to one another. And that's pretty much all I can say without giving away something
It's about,
pretty major. I mean, what else can you say about the plot of this film?
it's difficult because the movie is not about anything Matt has just said. Like the movie is about something very, very specific, and within that very specific thing lies the themes of the movie that tie into how Penelope Cruz's character met this guy to begin with, about generational links, like the strength of genealogy. And but in order to go any further, you would have to kind of spoil a major thing. So I don't think we should do that. But
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it would be safe to say that the film is kind of two films in one. There's
yes,
there's there's sort of two A plots.
yeah,
One of which is this story of Penelope Cruz and the young woman, um, who who basically have babies at the same time. That's pretty much the whole setup.
mm-hmm.
They end up spending a lot of time together. Um, and yeah, their story does end up reflecting the other A story, which is all about not only the strength of genealogy, but also like generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything about the history of Spain, you know that they had a civil war right around the same time as the Second World War, and a lot of this is stemming from that, and rightly so, because that was a terrible, terrible war that we don't talk about enough when we talk about the Second
Mm-hmm.
World War. The young woman is played by an actress called Milena Smit, I believe is how you say her last name. And
Okay.
she's quite young. She's in her 20s. She's actually been around in Spain for quite a while, though. She's been nominated for a couple of Goya Awards, which are um, Spain's Oscars, basically.
Oh,
And she's quite good in it too. The big news in this film, I feel, is Penelope Cruz, who is both one of the most
mm-hmm.
stunning human beings on the planet, who has this weird supernatural ability to make just any clothes look like the most attractive clothes in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But also, as it turns out, she's a hell of an actor. And I mean,
Yeah.
who knew that other than everyone on the planet?
Well, what I found really interesting for me is that I don't think I've seen her act in Spanish before.
Oh,
And
really?
I was really racking my brains watching this, trying to work out. I know I haven't seen many of, oh, help me, the director's name,
Amaldovar. Yeah.
Moldova. Um, I know a lot about him. I know a lot about his style. I think I watched one of his really, really early movies when I was a film student. Um, and I know that he's got this very strong. He's one of these visionary directors, and that he has very specific themes and visions, and he has a reputation for good lighting. And I think Parallel Mothers, one of the standout things for me is some very distinct lighting choices that were really evocative and really interesting. But um, because I haven't seen many of his movies, which he's collaborated with Penelope Cruz a number of times, I can't think of another movie that I've seen where she acts completely in Spanish. And that surprises me too, actually, because she's a fantastic actress and I've always enjoyed her performance, but there's something about her in her native tongue. And even though I don't speak, sorry, Baxter, you know I don't speak Spanish. The I understand a few words here and there, but the music of it and her delivery and her eyes, oh my god, the commitment to what she does in her body language and her eyes. And in this movie, she really goes through some like moments, trademark, like real actor moments, and she doesn't overplay it. And there's some moments of absolute like gut wrenching heartbreak that is she handles beautifully. Like she's sensational in this. So I'm really happy that she's been nominated. I so I actually would like to watch other things now.
I was going to say it's interesting to me that you haven't seen any of her Spanish films, because I think she's a spectacular actress in either language, but I think she's a better actor in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's just connection to the material, or just because of Spanish is her first language, or that she has some bond with Amaldóvar, or any Spanish. I don't know what it is. I think she's good in everything that I've seen her in. I think that she has only been truly transcendently good in Spanish films that I've seen her in.
Mm-hmm.
And she has done a number with Amaldóvar, although I don't think terribly recently. If memory serves, the last one she did with him was Broken Embraces, which is about 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
2009 or so, and Voltaire before that, and All About My Mother, I think, was in the late 90s. But they're all good movies, and Almodovar doesn't really make bad movies. He also made Pain and Glory in 2019, which was nominated for a Best Foreign Language Film Oscar year before last, with
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Banderas, who is another actor who is always good, but might be better in Spanish. Like
Mm-hmm.
he definitely picks more capital A acting roles in Spanish, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, Almodovar he's such a good. I don't know how much of it is him and how much of it is is a cinematographer, but he seems to know how to shoot a film in a
Mm-hmm.
very distinct and compelling way.
Yeah, it's very very distinct, and there's a couple of really slow. I don't know if you noticed too, but some very very slow fades at the end of telephone calls,
Yep.
like lighting fades, that for some reason just really. I'm not sure moved is the right word, but really resonated with me. Like there's something about that very intentional fade over dialogue that is such a distinct choice, and it was done so beautifully.
Yeah,
But
there's one in particular where she's she lies down in a bed after a phone call, and
Mhm.
you can tell it's a combination of a lighting fade and a fade out. But the lighting fades around her, and then it sort of slowly fades to her face, and then fades out completely.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
very, very deliberate and very effective.
it's really artistic. There's some beautiful painterly moments. This is again, I think when you have a director like this who is so experienced, and Del Toro's a lot like this as well, that he is so experienced with the art of filmmaking now, and he can really capture these really stylized moments in a very natural way. I also think as well that um, there's a moment in the film where there's a brief time jump that shows the context of a relationship between two characters.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he does this is so effortlessly great. And it was interesting this week that I tried to watch another movie. Maybe I won't mention it, but there was a low budget indie movie that has, in the middle of a conversation, it has a time jump to show the context of that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And we communicated at that time at how annoying that whole mess was, and it was just done really like without any grace, like without any skill, without any kind of idea about how films work. And to see something in the same week that does exactly the same thing, but so like the editing with the opening of the door, like cutting these two time jumps, and you
Mm-hmm.
knew exactly, because of the costume changes, you knew exactly what was going on, the acting changes as well, and when you cut back as well, it was just a joy, like a real. Technically, this film was a joy. Like as someone who loves the art of filmmaking, it's just great to watch a director who is so good at what they do.
Mhm.
It's kind of when you watch Spielberg as well. Like every frame is a something you could stop and print and frame.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where like I don't think you liked this. So I didn't love this film exactly, but I think it's a good movie and people should see it. I don't think you liked it as much as I did on the whole, but I don't think that Almodovar makes really like bad movies. I think he's kind of like he is like Spielberg is a good comparison, if only in that Spielberg on his worst day is still the
Mm-hmm.
most technically proficient
Mm,
director in the world. Like,
yeah.
you watch something like Ready Player One, which is a movie that I don't really like, but you can
Mm-hmm.
the parts where he was there and it's not just a mess of CGI. The parts where he's directing it
Mm-hmm.
are just superb, you know. And I think Almodovar is kind of the same. That there's just a baseline level of quality you can expect from him,
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not you connect with the material, his films are never not about something, which
Mm-hmm.
I also find effective. He doesn't ever just make. He's always working through something. He's
Mm-hmm.
never just making a story to tell a story. There's
Yeah.
always some underlying theme he's trying to explore, and I really appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, that's totally correct. I um I didn't really feel the story worked for me, but I agree it's definitely the kind of movie that it could really really work for you if you like these two storylines that are kind of thematically linked and narratively linked. They kind of bookend everything else that goes on. This this expert who is hired to hopefully exhume the remains of Penelope Cruz's grandfather who got killed in this terrible
Well,
fascist war.
I guess we're spoiling the thing.
No, no, I don't think we're not spoiling. I mean, it's in the first how she meets him. It's literally in the first minute
That's true.
about she hires him to hopefully find the resting place of her granddad. Like it's in the first seconds. The main point of this movie is not this. The rest of the story is not really about this first introduction, but by the end you kind of link to it. And I just felt the whole thing was a bit fractured and a bit scattershot and uh, a bit uneven. But
Yeah,
I enjoyed the technical side.
yeah, I don't think that's unfair. And I watched this with my wife, and she actually said much the same thing. I agree that I feel like the film is kind of two movies smushed together, and it doesn't. It's not as cohesive as it could or maybe should be, for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
And in fact, towards the end, when it is jumping from, the one plot to the other,
Hmm.
there's actually some specific character resolution that is glossed over,
Hmm.
like hand waved away, that
Yeah,
kind of bothered me.
yeah,
Um,
I know what you mean. You feel like you missed like a couple of scenes of resolution. Absolutely. Like, oh,
yeah.
okay. So
Um,
that's happening.
but I'm still on team. You should see the movie. Like
Oh yeah.
it's like whether or not we think it's good. I think you should see it and decide for yourself because the parts of it that really work, and part of that is Penelope Cruz being amazing.
Oh, she's
So
fantastic. Yeah.
yeah,
She is absolutely fantastic and very, very moving and very real and authentic and stunningly beautiful woman as well. Which,
and if you like movies with lots of weird Hitchcockian twists and turns, then you were gonna like this movie because this movie has a ton of those. There's a plot twist every couple of scenes. It feels like through the middle. And
yeah,
like that could be a thing to complain about, but in this case, it's handled well enough that it works.
yeah, and none of it is done for shock factor. It's all incorporated. It's not really. There's no like thrills in here. It's more um, revelations that shock everything. So um,
Yeah, and almost every choice. In fact, I would say basically every choice that each character makes in the face of those revelations is whether or not it's the right or wrong choice is completely understandable.
And you know what's really interesting about that, again, without spoiling anything, is that there's one or two choices that come so quickly, like decisions that come so quickly. You really have to pay attention to what's going on because they are absolutely relevant for later on,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a couple of times like, do I understand this correctly? Is this really what's happening? And what's really interesting is that we don't see, maybe some other directors would have written far more scenes leading up to certain decisions being made. But in
Mm-hmm.
this film, they are snapshots. They're like, this is happening and it's done. And it's actually relevant for later. So it is a movie you have to like pay attention to. I mean, all movies should be movies you pay attention to, but it it's that you're right. It is quite twisty.
Yeah, in a good way though.
Yep.
So Parallel Mother. What do you think out of 5 Parallel Mothers for
Uh,
you?
I gave it 2. I would be very curious. Maybe you know more about this than I do. To watch this director's other movies and see if it's indicative of his style. If it's more style over substance. Um, I think I've
Um,
seen. I think I've seen All About My Mother. All About Your Mother.
all About My Mother. Yeah.
All About My
I
Mother.
would
I'm pretty sure I've
say
seen that.
that if this film suffers, so what I understand of this film, which I would give a 3 out of 5, just for the record, um, is that the production of it was quite rushed compared to a lot of films. I think it was put together and completed in like a month last year. Like it was quite rushed. So that could be part of why it's a bit scattered, a bit fractured.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, Pain and Glory was one of my favorite films of 2019.
Hmm.
Like by a pretty wide margin, it's a really great film. Um, most of his films are great.
Hmm.
Uh, and again, I don't think he makes bad films, but this is probably, you know, one of his more average ones. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
Nice. So, shall we move on?
Yeah, let's move on. So, we're going to talk about some Oscar nominations. I don't know if we're going to talk about all of the Oscar nominations because there are just so many to talk about, but
We'll give it a go.
we'll give it a go. So, the Oscar nominations were announced just this week, and there's been some. I don't know about you. I've seen more of the films than I think you have, but there
Yes. Yeah.
aren't that many surprises for me personally. Did anything stick out to you, or have you even really looked? Or
No, I have glossed over them, and I think the surprises for me this year are actually in a nice way. Usually, I get very very angry about what's left out of the Oscars, but there's been a couple of inclusions this year that I kind of wasn't expecting there to be included, which we'll get to as we talk about the nominees. But by and
uh,
large,
is
the
there any like big snub you want to talk about before we get started? Because I have exactly one that I am a little bit upset was left out.
hmm, I don't think so. I'll probably think of one later. Who's your snub?
I personally would have nominated Nicolas Cage for Best Actor for the film Pig, and I would have
Oh,
nominated Pig for Best Picture too.
lots of people love that movie.
That's because it's a great movie, and
So interesting that the people that I follow from all different walks of life, like writers, directors, all these kind of people, they seem to be united by two things. The first is Nintendo's Kirby fetish, and the second is that movie and how great Nicolas Cage is.
yeah, that's because he's great. He's really great. It's a really great film, and he's really great in it.
Um, why do you think he wasn't included? Do they just hate Nicolas Cage?
I mean, they've given him an Academy Award before, so it can't be that.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I think it's a little bit esoteric. It's a little bit weird at points.
Hmm.
Um, it's also, I mean, not that it's stopped them before, but it's quite a melancholy movie.
Hmm.
And it's a bit. What's the right way to say this? It's an indie film in a way where I think the thing you have to remember about the Oscars each year is that part of it is celebrating great film, and part of it is celebrating great films with excellent marketing departments
Yeah.
and large marketing budgets. And I don't think that Pig necessarily had the budget to compete in that way. In the same way that I think The Green Knight would have been an excellent one to highlight
Hmm.
this year, and it just wasn't.
Hmm.
I just don't think that A24 necessarily has the budget, or if they did have the budget, they put it towards Macbeth because they produced Macbeth. So
Right. But Macbeth has had some nods, which is nice.
it has. Well, and on that note, so let's dive in. Let's talk about first. We're going to go by this letterboxd ballot in that order. So let's talk about actor in a leading role.
Okay.
There's 5 nominees, and they are Javier Bardem for being the Ricardos, Benedict Cumberbatch for The Power of the Dog, Andrew Garfield for Tick Tick Boom, Will Smith for King Richard, and Denzel Washington for The Tragedy of Macbeth. There are, and I'm going to say this as a person who didn't really like being the Ricardos. There are no bad choices in this category.
Oh, really? Okay.
Being the Ricardos is not a very good movie, but Javier Bardem is good in it. And there's some controversy because he's Spanish and he's playing, Ricky Ricardo, who is Cuban, and there's a lot of stuff to unpack there in terms of Hollywood, whitewashing roles. But he's still a good actor, and he's still great in that part. I don't think he's going to win. I think that this is pretty much Benedict Cumberbatch's award to lose at this point. I don't know. How do you feel? How many of these have you seen, and how do you feel about it? I've seen all of them for a change.
I've seen 2.5.
I've seen Tick Tick Boom and The Tragedy of Macbeth, and
yes,
half of Power of the Dog. I'm guessing.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Half of the dog.
Yeah. You should keep watching Power of the Dog because the back half makes the front half better.
I'm in a position here where I am perhaps not biased, but there was a certain point where I looked at Benedict Cumberbatch's acting and went, "Oh, I don't believe this anymore. I don't believe any of this." A couple of years ago, I don't know what the role was, but suddenly, since then, whenever I watch him acting anything, I don't believe anything he does.
I don't want to spoil The Power of the Dog, but it is this quality about his acting that you're speaking about that makes the film powerful in the end.
Okay.
Because he's cast so against type he's cast very against type in the first 2/3 of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the film reveals what it's actually doing in the third act, it all comes together. It's a slow movie. It's a very deliberately slow and thoughtful movie. And I totally get why some people don't like it, but I think you should watch it to the end before you make that choice.
It's not just this movie. Yeah, I that's fair about this movie. His last couple of performances that I've seen, I've not enjoyed at all. And on the flip side, I've got 2 movies with incredible performances, like Andrew Garfield and Tick Tick Boom. I love the story where Lin-Manuel Miranda offered him the role, and he said, "Do I have to sing?" And Miranda said, "Yeah." But you found out it was filming in a year from that point. And Miranda said, "Well, do you want to sing?" And he was like, "Yeah, fine, I'll sing. I'm going to sing at that point." And then he spent the year learning how to sing and play piano. And he is Tick Tick Boom is a brilliant movie. I would have perhaps been happy if it had a few more nominations, to be honest. It is a brilliantly directed movie.
It's got a couple nominations, though.
Yeah, but as director, maybe, and maybe even like Best Picture. I think it's a really good film.
We're going to talk a lot about the Best Picture category when we get there, but I would happily sub that in for one of the other choices specifically. But I do think we're going to come to it later, but it's also nominated for film editing, and I think that's an award it has a shot at.
Okay, that's great. But Andrew Garfield's sensational on Tick Tick Boom. Like, really, like, knocked everything out of the park. But then in the same category, you've got Denzel, who I think up until Tragedy of Macbeth, I just thought was fine. But he is. I mean, we talked about this in our Macbeth podcast. Like, Shakespeare could be written for him. Like, it's not just he clearly understands what he's saying, and he clearly understands how to say it, but his voice is just designed for these Shakespearean lines, and his breathing and delivery and
Yeah,
focus is
everything about the way that
sensational.
he speaks is designed for the way Shakespeare
Yeah,
is written.
it's just
Um,
it's so natural,
yeah.
and for an American to speak Shakespeare, but it's not just his delivery. He gets that slow burn. I know that's down to Cohen's direction as well, but he really gets that slow burn of Macbeth and the psychosis that sits in his head towards the end. Like, he's amazing. So I would be really happy with Andrew Garfield or Denzel
Hmm.
getting that one. Who would you like to see? Oh, actually,
Uh,
who would you like to see, and who do you think is going to get it? Because those are two different things, aren't
so I think that Benedict Cumberbatch is going to win.
they? Okay.
Um, I yeah, I don't think that needs an explanation. I think he's going to win. He's already won a bunch of awards. I think he's going to win.
And the Academy loves Jane Campion as well.
Yep. We'll come to that I think next, but
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, honestly, there's no bad choices in this. I've seen all 5 performances; they are all great. I wish that maybe Will Smith had been nominated in a weaker year because he's actually legitimately great in King Richard. Um, which is a bit of a weird movie, to be honest. You wouldn't think on paper, if you were going to make a film about Venus and Serena Williams, you would make it about Venus and Serena Williams, but they made a movie about themselves and they made their father the main character. And it doesn't. It sounds like a weird idea, but it really works. And Will Smith is really good in it. Um, and I mean, again, I don't have necessarily a pick here because I think it's Benedict Cumberbatch's award to lose, like I said before, but I don't think there's a bad
Mm-hmm.
choice. I'll be happy with whoever wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Where do you want
Okay.
to go? Where do you want to go next? Best supporting actor, or you want to go down the acting
Sure.
line, or do you want to go to
Yeah, let's go
director?
down. Let's go down the acting line. That's good.
All right. So best actor in a supporting role. And I always pronounce this gentleman's name incorrectly, but I believe it's
Okay.
Kieran Hines. I believe
Um,
for Belfast. I
I
think.
I don't know how to say his name properly.
Yeah, Troy Kotsur for Coda, Jesse Plemons for The Power of the Dog, J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos, and Cody Smith McPhee for The Power of the Dog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have seen all of these but one. I have not seen Coda, which is weird because it's just on Apple TV Plus. I should have seen it. It'll be one of my catch-up films in the next month or so.
Oh, is that
Um,
the guy with deaf parents? Is that
yes, it
out?
is.
Oh, bloody hell! I do
Yeah,
want to watch
it's been on Apple TV Plus for months now, and I just
that.
never
Oh,
watched it.
yeah, really?
Yeah.
I saw a trailer for that. I thought, oh, I'd really like to watch that. I had no idea I could actually watch that.
Yep.
Brilliant. I'm like on the ball as ever. Um,
Well, kids, whatever. It's fine. Um,
um, can Jesse Plemons win, but actually it be for game night instead of Power of the Dog? That would make me quite happy.
if it was a different year, I would say yes. But honestly, I fully expect Cody Smith McPhee to take this one home for the same film.
Is that the
Uh,
kid? That's the boy, right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And he, as with Cumberbatch, his, and to be fair, literally everyone in this film is good. Basically four roles, and all 4 people are nominated, and they are all great.
Hmm.
But I think that Cody Smith McPhee is probably the one to take it home because his role has I would argue, perhaps a little more depth and certainly a little more focus in the film.
Hmm.
And I think that will, and he's a young up and comer. I think, that for me, that the Academy tends to, you know, do that. Certainly with
Yeah.
women. I mean, the average like best actor age for women is like 25. The average best actor age for men is like 35. So,
Hmm.
maybe they can correct that down a little bit on the man side.
Hmm.
Um, but I think he's going to take it home. I haven't seen Troy Kutzer, but Belfast, and I don't think J.K. Simmons is going to take it. I think that's a nomination that you get because you're good, but
Hmm.
it's not. Yeah, J.K. Simmons has that same problem that like Spielberg does, where every time he shows up, he's just great, and
Yeah,
it's hard to give awards for just being great all the time.
that's fair enough.
Yeah,
I don't know. I have no horse in this race. Um, I like Jesse Plemons from other things, and to be fair, in the half of The Power of the Dog I saw, he was really good. So that wouldn't be a problem for me.
yeah.
I
I
actually
don't.
really like. Sorry to interrupt. I really liked his battle between the kind of grubby cowboy he was and the more capitalist kind of businessman he now is, and that contrast
And
between
the type of man that his brother and family expect him to be, and the kind of man that he wants to be.
yeah, and
Yeah,
how their behavior is different from his new behavior. I thought he conveyed that really really well, so I'd be happy with that.
yeah.
Okay.
So best actress in a leading role. Ooh.
Mm, what have we got here?
So Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Coleman for The Lost Daughter, Penelope Cruz for Madres Paralelas, Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos, and Kristen Stewart for Spencer.
Do
Have
you
you
know what?
seen
I like.
Have you seen any
Yeah,
of these?
Parallel Mothers. That's it.
Yeah.
Um, Penelope Cruz is fantastic, and I'd be very happy if she got it. But just generally, I think Kristen Stewart would do well to win an Oscar at this point. I haven't seen Spencer. I'm not going to watch Spencer, but I hear she's very good in it, and she's just the kind of actress who does really like consistently interesting, like she makes interesting choices and she always commits to it. And both her and Patterson have come out of Twilight, and they could have made their retirement fund from romantic comedies for the rest of their life, and they've both sought out really interesting, difficult things to do. And I
Hmm.
find her a really interesting actress on many, many different levels. So I would be really happy for her to get an Oscar, to be honest. How about you?
I hope she wins. I have seen Spencer, and I think you should see Spencer, um, which
Oh.
is which is basically a movie about how difficult it is to spend a weekend with your family. um, but she is fully committed in that film, and she is wonderful. I don't. It's just a story of Princess Diana, and it's set over. It's a fictionalized version of the 3 days at Christmas where she decides to get a divorce from Charles, and she's wonderful in it. And there's I don't know how to. I don't know what other word to use. She's so good. She's so nuanced. She's so 100% in. I'm sure that her English accent probably sounds a little off to an actual English person, but she captures Diana's body language and that sort of like breathy cadence that she had,
Hmm.
in the same way that the young girl from The Crown did, but perhaps with a little more
Yeah.
dramatic oomph behind it.
Hmm.
So I don't. So I think there's a lot of good choices here. I kind of hope Nicole Kidman doesn't win, not because I think she's bad, but because I think that she did really well with a role that she was a little bit miscast in Being the Ricardos. And I haven't seen The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Olivia Coleman is great in The Lost Daughters, and Penelope Cruz is great in Parallel Mothers, but I
Mm.
don't think that they are necessarily of the caliber that Kristen Stewart was in Spencer, for me
Oh,
personally.
that's fair. That's fair. It's funny. I've heard. I haven't heard a single good thing about being the Ricardos, apart from how fine the two leads are. But as a movie itself, I've heard pretty middling things.
It's on
Although
Amazon Prime if you want to watch it, and I would say try and watch it, but it's
that's
it's
glowing to me.
also it's weird because it's a movie that it's an Aaron Sorkin movie, and I think that he's a very good writer, but I think he's a very middling director, and I really wish he would stop directing things.
Mm-hmm.
And he his very famous mode of speech that he gives to all the stuff that he writes, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think necessarily fits in a lot of the scenes in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and as much as again, I think that Nicole Kidman is a great actress, and I think she did very good with the material she had, but I don't think she was right for the part.
Okay, that's fair.
So, but moving on
Okay.
to actress in a supporting role, so we have Jessie Buckley in The Lost Daughter, Ariana DeBose in West Side Story, Judi Dench in Belfast, Kirsten Dunst in The Power of the Dog, and I don't know how to pronounce this. I'm so sorry. Anju Genoa Ellis in King Richard.
Sure.
Um, I apologize for not being able to pronounce that name. Um, I think this is another category with no bad choices. I hope that Ariana DeBose wins or
Mm-hmm.
Jessie Buckley wins.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no bad choices.
Jessie Buckley's a really interesting performer. Like, there's something about her. There was a trailer for Annihilation guy. Who directed Ex Machina? Alex Garland. So
Alex Garland, yeah.
Alex Garland's new movie called Men. There was a trailer for it with Jessie Buckley in, and even just in the trailer, there's something about her. Again, she's just all in. Like, she's really, really committed in every single frame, and I find her incredibly watchable. I haven't seen The Lost Daughter, although I've heard really interesting things about it.
Yep.
So I do want to watch it.
So The Lost Daughter is on Netflix,
Yeah.
and you should totally watch it.
Mm-hmm.
But Jessie Buckley and Olivia Coleman, who are again both nominated, play the younger and older versions of the same character.
Right.
So Olivia Coleman plays a woman in the present who's on a vacation, and she keeps having flashbacks to her past, where she's played by Jessie Buckley. And not only is Jessie Buckley just generally really good, I don't know what they did together to figure this out, but they both perfectly embody the same character
Mm-hmm.
to a point where you kind of almost forget that it's not just the same person, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the main character she's not the most sympathetic character, and Jessie Buckley in particular has a lot more weight on her shoulders when it comes to that aspect of the character. And
Mm-hmm.
she does an amazing job of making you like her while she's doing not necessarily very likable things.
That's a real talent. Yeah.
But on the other hand, Ariana DeBose is absolutely electric in West Side Story, and I would love to see her take home an Oscar for it. She is,
Me too.
I mean, I think most people in West Side Story were good, but Rachel Zegler and Ariana DeBose in particular um, were so transcendently good, and I would be very happy to see her take it home.
On that note, are you surprised to see Rachel Zegler left out of the acting nominations?
Um, no, I mean yes and no. You know, the Academy tends to love young women. It's actually sort of weird that the leading actress category only has one actress you would consider like young in Kristen Stewart. Um, but I mean, if I had having seen the film, if I had to pick one of them, I would pick Ariana DeBose for sure, just
Mm-hmm.
100%. She lights up the screen every time. Every time the camera's pointed at her, you're like, yeah, something great's about to happen. you know,
Yeah, but
like
I mean, it's interesting because I watched Hamilton relatively recently, finally, and there was an actress in the chorus who I could not take my eyes off, and did the bullet ballet, and she did the thing like whispering in the king's ear about who the next president is, and
yep.
could not
Turns
could not
out,
take. Well, yeah, I couldn't take my eyes off it, and then months ago when we watched Schmigadoon, and I texted you like how much I was in love with the school teacher and what an amazing performance, and I never realized this is the same actress,
yep,
and now she's the main part in West Side Story. So I would love for her to get an Oscar because she's brilliant, sensationally, fantastically brilliant. Even though I
yeah.
haven't seen West Side Story yet.
Well, so that's. Do you have any dog in the race who you think is going to take it home? Do you care?
I have loved Kirsten Dunst for years and years, and I don't mean lovely in the weird way. I just think she's great, and if she could win an Oscar for Bring It On and the good that that movie has brought to the world, then that would make me happy. But Ariana DeBose, definitely.
Yeah, I think that Kirsten Dunst has a shot too. Like I say, this is a category um, with no bad choices. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Ellis in King Richard plays the girl's mother, and she is also fantastic. Um, as a side note, one interesting fact I just learned is that this is the first year in Oscars history where two couples have both been nominated for the acting roles. Did you know that? So
Say again?
So Javier Bardem, who's nominated for Best Actor, is married
Mhm.
to Penelope Cruz, who's nominated for Best Actress,
No, I didn't
and
know
Jesse
that.
Plemons and Kirsten Dunst, who are both nominated for Best Supporting Actor and Actress respectively, are also married.
Jesse Plemons is
Oh yeah,
married to Kirsten Dunst.
yeah, they met on the set of the second season of the Fargo TV show, and they've been together ever since.
Man, you're blowing my mind, my friend.
Yep.
Well, that's cool.
Well, moving on, let's look at the animated feature film.
I'm
So we
excited
have.
about this category.
I know you have a pick, so we're gonna. There's Encanto and Flea and Luca and the Mitchells versus the Machines and Raya and the Last Dragon. Which one do you want to win, Simon?
Well, I'm very excited because I think this is the only category where I've seen more movies than you at this point
I've
in
seen
the
all five.
category. Oh, when did you watch
Oh no,
Encanto?
I haven't seen Encanto. That's true. I've seen the other
Okay,
four.
all right. So we're four each because I haven't seen Flea. Um, this is going to be a difficult one because usually with animated, there's one that I absolutely am behind 100% and it never wins, and I get very, very angry. But here you've got four out of the four movies I've seen, they're all worthy. Like Luca, I thought started weirdly and then just turned into this absolutely fantastic movie about friendship. And Mitchell's versus the Machines isn't quite Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, but it's as close as anyone has got to Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. It's just wonderful. I love Raya and the Last Dragon. Like I know it didn't really land with a lot of people, and it was kind of people talked a lot about it ripping off Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it is a spectacularly made and designed movie and
Hmm.
brilliantly voiced as well. But I mean, Encanto's going to win. Encanto's going to win the best animated feature, and it totally 100% deserves to. It is brilliantly directed, and the color and the design choices are incredible. Like it absolutely deserves to win. Do you have a horse in this race?
So I'm. I haven't seen Encanto, and I understand that it is great. Of the four that I've seen, I would personally choose the Mitchells versus the Machines.
Mhm,
I think that Raya and the Last Dragon is an excellently made film that is a little bit, maybe, for lack of a better way to say it, I've definitely seen that story before. Like
mhm,
it's a very much like it's just another Disney movie in that way, you
mhm,
know. Um, I think that Flea is a super interesting choice for this category. It's actually made history this year. It's nominated for Best International Feature, Best Documentary, and Best Animated Feature, which is something that's never
yeah,
happened before.
yeah.
I think it's going to win one of those three. I, I think honestly, I wouldn't be shocked or terribly disappointed if it won all three. It's definitely
Mhm,
worthy. I think of the ones it might lose this, or a better way to say this is I think the one of the ones it might win best documentary is probably the one.
mhm,
Um, so of these ones, I'm going to go with for now the Mitchells versus the Machines
mhm,
as my personal pick. But I kind of even sight unseen, I kind of expect Encanto to win.
mhm.
If only because no one on social media will shut the fuck up about it. So,
But I mean, at least it's good. Like people, there's just a giant loving over everything in Canto. Like there's so much love in that movie, and there's so much it says about family and finding your place and learning what like your true gift to the world is. It's just lovely. It's fantastic.
yeah. Well, I hope I will see it, and then I hope it'll be good.
Yes.
Next up, we have cinematography, and in that category, we
Hmm.
have Dune, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, The Tragedy of Macbeth, and West Side Story. And
Hmm.
I fully expect The Power of the Dog to take this one home.
Okay. I haven't seen Dune yet. Um, Macbeth really stands out for me because it was so stylized, but I do see where you're going. Like the Power of the Dog, Jane Campion, her thing is to make landscapes look incredible. Like she can shoot this like dusty western look so beautifully, and she all of her character shots are really beautifully done as well. So I that would be fine. I would love West Side Story to win because I think Spielberg's one of the absolute best when it comes to cinematography. But
Well, who
again,
would
I haven't
be
seen it. So
see here. Cinematography. I'm just looking at a more detailed list. So for cinematography, yeah, it would be Janusz Kaminski for West Side Story, and he's worked with Spielberg a lot. Like he's basically Spielberg's guy.
Mm-hmm.
The Power of the Dog would be, I think, an interesting choice because that film is beautifully shot, and
Mm-hmm.
Ari Wegner is has done a lot of good films, including Lady Macbeth in 2016 and Zola last year as well. Actually, um, she would also, if she were to win, I believe she'd be the first woman to win the award. Um,
Really?
but
Wow.
more importantly, I just think, and I've seen all of these except for Nightmare Alley. I think that The Power of the Dog is just the most beautifully shot of them, and I think West
Mm-hmm.
Side Story is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But there's something about the way that The Power of the Dog captures not only the people but the landscape that the film is
Mm-hmm.
set in, that is just uh, transcendently good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think it's worth noting that Dune probably has a fair shot at this as well, because I think that despite not having any acting nominations and no Best Director nomination, which we'll come to in a bit,
Mm-hmm.
Dune is absolutely has a chance of being that film this year in the way that Mad Max Fury Road did, where it takes home all of the technical awards.
Mm-hmm.
um, because it is, and it's interesting. We talked about Dune. When I first saw it, I didn't really connect with it, but I've watched it a couple of times since, and every time I do, I like it more. And
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see it take some stuff home.
Yeah.
But yeah, my personal
I,
choice, my personal expectation is that The Power of the Dog will win for cinematography.
mm-hmm.
Costume design. So we
Corella.
have Cruella, Cyrano, Dune, Nightmare Alley, and West Side Story. My personal expectation is that Cruella will win, based
Yeah.
on
It
all of the incredible costumes in that film. That's it. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what
We
else to
don't need to
say.
discuss that. I totally agree. Let's move on. Like
Yeah,
it's so ahead of anything else I've seen in terms
yeah.
of design and
This is
costume.
another one. Dune is nominated, and I think Dune, based on the strength of the way the still suits are designed, and also the militaristic uniforms, and especially the House Harkonnen stuff is designed, like it definitely has a shot. But
Mm-hmm.
personally, I totally expect Cruella to take it home.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to go back up to the top
Yep.
of this next column on this Oscar ballot to find the category of Best Director. So,
I'm just gonna sit back. Okay, go for it.
yeah, so we have Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, Ryusuke Homaguchi for Drive My Car, Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza, Jane Campion for The Power of the Dog, and Steven Spielberg for West Side Story. Did you know that this makes Steven Spielberg, I believe, the most nominated? Oh, no, sorry. It doesn't make him the most nominated director. It makes him the first director to be nominated in 6 distinct decades or something like that. There's some record he
Oh,
set.
well, I mean, I'm yet to watch West Side Story, but I'm comfortable to say that he's probably the best director in that group out of all those movies. He's the best living film director, and
That's
so
true.
of course he should get an Oscar. Like this shouldn't even be a discussion. The other people shouldn't even turn up. Like Ken Branagh can stay at home with his cup of tea. Um,
Well, Kenneth Branagh might win for a screenplay, but that's another discussion. I think Jane
yeah.
Campion's going to win this time, personally.
Oh, okay.
She's
Do that.
also set a record. So Steven Spielberg has now been nominated in the 70s, 80s, 90s, zeros, tens, and 20s. Um, and he is the
Wow.
greatest living filmmaker. But Jane Campion, I think, is going to take this one home. The Power of the Dog
Hmm.
is a powerhouse. I don't. I think there's a more broad expectation for me is that either The Power of the Dog is going to take home basically everything it's nominated for, or nothing.
Hmm.
you know, like
Yeah, it does feel like one of those movies that gets that sweep. There's
yeah.
always a couple of years.
Um,
There's one of those, isn't there?
And Jane Campion actually is makes a small amount of Oscar history as well, being the first ever woman to have been nominated for a second time.
Oh.
Which is, I know, also disappointing when you figure that she's with her second nomination is now that's only 6 women, 6 years ever where they've had women nominees. So
That can't be.
it
That can't be right.
is.
Really?
Yeah, it's really upsetting.
How many Oscars is this? Did you say 95?
95th, yeah.
And there are six. There's been
94th, 94th, sorry.
and this is the 6th year of those where there's been a woman nominated for director.
Yeah. And this is only the second time that a woman's been nominated for this, or only the first time where a woman has been nominated for the second time.
Wow, women need to get better at filmmaking, clearly.
Yeah, right.
Come on.
That's the
Come
problem,
on.
sure.
I mean, there can't be any other reason for that. Jesus
Yep.
Christ.
Well, it's yeah,
Wow.
I expect Jane Campion to take it. I think that Ryosuke Hamaguchi is an interesting choice. He's also the first Japanese person
Hmm.
to be nominated for Best Director, and by all accounts, Drive My Car is an excellent film that I desperately want to see and have missed 3 separate times. Um, but I think this is going to be Jane Campion's year as Stu.
Right. Fair enough.
So
Do you want to brush over the documentaries? I have nothing to say about any of the documentaries. You've talked about
so
Flea already.
yeah, so documentary feature. I think it's Flea's award to lose. Summer of Soul is also well loved by everyone who's seen it. Um, I have not seen the other 3 nominees, which are Ascension, Attica, and Riding with Fire. But of the 2 that I am aware of, Flea and Summer of Soul, they're both good. I think it's Flea's to lose.
Okay.
It's the story of a young man who escaped war-torn Afghanistan to Denmark and discovered his homosexuality and came out in the process while he was a refugee. Like, it ticks all the boxes, and
It
it's
does.
animated, so it's presented in an interesting way.
Right. Okay. That's a
So
that's a set then, definitely.
yeah, I have not seen any of the documentary short subjects, so I'm going to say we just gloss
Well,
over it.
yeah. Editing Tick Tick Boom. That would be nice. It's going to be Power of the
Yeah,
Dog.
I don't know. I think Tick Tick Boom actually is quite a shot. I think it's really well put together. Um,
Hmm.
I think Dune is really well put together too. It manages its weird time jumps and flashbacks really well. I
Hmm.
Don't Look Up is nominated in this category. So the nominees being Don't Look Up, Dune, King Richard, The Power of the Dog, and Tick Tick Boom. My personal hope is that it's Tick Tick Boom. I don't think Don't Look Up should be in any categories, but that's a discussion for a later time.
No, let's have that now.
No, no, because there's a bigger award that it's nominated for. So,
Oh, okay. All right.
um, next
Uh,
up, international
International.
feature.
I have no idea.
So we have Drive My Car, Flee, The Hand of God, Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom, and The Worst Person in the World. I think this one is probably Drive My Cars to lose. Again, I haven't seen it, but it seems like exactly the kind of movie that the Academy would choose.
Hmm.
I think there's a dark horse chance that it might be The Worst Person in the World, which is another one that I've missed 3 separate
Hmm.
times. But I think The Worst Person in the World, it might win the other one that it's nominated for, which we'll come to in a bit. So
Hmm.
my guess is that Drive My Car will win.
Yeah, I think so too. It's the buzz it's had, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go over the nominees for makeup and hairstyling because it should be Cruella.
Cruella, absolutely.
Original score is a tough one. Um, there are no bad choices in this. I think it's the one category where I can stand that Don't Look Up is in it. Um, I kind of expect Hans Zimmer to take it home for Dune, though. He's doing interesting and weird things with the music and instruments and more ethnic and Middle Eastern sounds in ways that we haven't heard before in Western cinema, at least. And I think that if he doesn't, it'll be Johnny Greenwood for The Power of the Dog. But I think it's going to be Hans Zimmer for Dune.
Good.
Any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I like. I mean, I have only Parallel Mothers and Encanto to talk about here. The Encanto score is lovely, but like Hans Zimmer, I think is actually one of the great movie composers. He gets a lot of slack for his kind of Inception era horns, but
Yeah.
if you like, I was listening to Man of Steel, which is not a good movie, but that's a great soundtrack. But he's done some really diverse, interesting things, and I love pretty much everything he creates. So I'd be really happy for him to get an Oscar for this. I'm sure I'll love Dune as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think Encanto will win, and the reason for that is the next category, which is Best Original Song, features the song, and I'm going to mispronounce this, but Dos Oruguitas,
Sure.
composed by one Lin-Manuel Miranda, and I
Hmm.
think he will finally score his EGOT with this category.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. I'm surprised that we don't talk about Bruno didn't get nominated because that is, I know it's the song that everyone is singing at the moment, but apart from it being in the zeitgeist, it is a spectacularly composed song that overlaps with itself and tells a brilliant story. And it's, but to be fair, this movie, Dos Regritas, is the emotional climax of the movie. It
Yeah, and
is,
that's the one they're going to go for, right?
yeah, I guess so. It is.
Every time.
It's the first song he's written just in Spanish, and it sounds like the kind of classical song that has existed forever. It is a beautiful, amazingly emotive song. So I would be so happy if this wins.
Yeah,
No Time to
and
Die is not a good Bond theme. I don't even know why it's nominated.
it's a good
Like,
song. That's why.
it's not. It's not a good song. It's not a good Bond theme.
I don't
It's
know if
not
it's a
at
good
all.
Bond theme, but it's a good song.
Uh,
Down to Joy is a for so Belfast is nominated for the song Down to Joy, and a song called Somehow You Do for a movie called The Four Good Days, which I didn't realize even had come out,
yeah,
is nominated. And
I
then
haven't
Be
got my.
Alive from King Richard. Now Be Alive I think is an interesting choice. That's a Beyonce song. And hang on, let's see here. Um, and yeah, so Down to Joy is one I'm torn on because it's a Van Morrison song, and I have historically liked Van Morrison, but in recent years revealed himself to be a terrible human being, and I hope he doesn't win.
Fair enough. I
So,
misread the last one because I don't have my glasses on as that thing you do. I'm like, oh, okay, that's nice that they've gone retrospectively awarded that thing you do again for best original song. I think it won, didn't it, when it was up for best song?
no, I don't think it did actually. Did it?
If you want to feel really old, because that thing you do feels like quite a recent movie to me, but look at the pictures of the cast of everyone in that thing you do, and it's all these older male actors now as young boys. That's how old we are. We're very old.
Yeah,
So
we
Doster
really,
Agritas,
we really are. Jesus.
yes.
1996. That Thing You Do was nominated for Best Original Song, and it lost to Andrew
Oh,
Lloyd Webber and Tim Rice for "You Must
yeah,
Love Me" from Evita, because of course it did.
yeah. I'm not gonna beat that, are they?
No. Uh,
Production design.
so Dune, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, The Tragedy of Macbeth, and West Side Story. I don't really think there's any bad choices here. So
No.
um, I'm going to check the box beside West Side Story. I haven't seen Nightmare Alley, but
Put me down for Macbeth. Like, I feel like not seeing
actually,
Nightmare Alley might be a piece of this puzzle that we probably should have.
well, the only thing
I've
is that
heard really good things.
the only thing about Nightmare Alley is that it's streaming on Hulu in the States and it's not streaming here in Canada
Oh, thanks, Hulu.
or HBO Max. It's on one of them in the States. It's not playing here.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm gonna put mine by Macbeth actually, but I don't think there's a bad choice.
Okay.
Uh, Best sound, we have Belfast, Dune, No Time to Die, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. I always have a hard time with the sound categories, but I don't
West
know.
Side
I
Story.
don't. I say, well, let's say West Side Story just because.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Visual effects. We have Dune, Free Guy, No Time to Die, Shang Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Spider-Man: No Way Home. And I'm giving this one to Dune for sure
Not Free Guy.
because
Free Guy's great.
Free Guy is a great film that I had a great time with. The the effects in Dune look real.
Right.
I don't know how else to say that. The spaceships and all of the weird, funky tech and all of the architect, all the sets, everything
Hmm.
look real. Everything looks real, like believably real.
Hmm.
And I don't. There's no. That's the bar, right? So
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, Dune sounds good.
yeah.
It's a shame. Shang-Chi would be nice, but it'll be Dune.
I mean, if they're gonna give it to a Marvel adjacent film, they're probably gonna give it to Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
Dune's the one.
Okay.
So,
Writing,
writing
screenplay.
for adapted screenplay, we have Coda, Drive My Car, Dune, The Lost Daughter, and The Power of the Dog. I don't have any idea which one is going to win. I haven't
Me
seen
neither.
Coda or Drive My Car. Um, I'm I'm gonna check off The Lost Daughter just
Sure.
cause, just cause it's a really well made film, and I think it deserves to win something. For original screenplay, we have Belfast, Don't Look Up, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, and The Worst Person in the World. This is a category I think I've seen the fewest films in.
Hmm.
I have only seen Belfast. Oh, and I've seen 3 out of the 5. Um, of those 3, I definitely don't want Don't Look Up to win it. Uh,
It's a weird choice, isn't it? I turned that movie off, and there was nothing in the part I saw where it should be Oscar nominee for writing. Like
there's
that
no,
is,
there's to be fair, there's 2 things that I think in that film are incredibly clever, and they're in the same scene. Um, so yeah, there's one thing in that film I think is good writing, but other than that, I don't want it to win anything. So, but honestly, I think this might be the one they give to Kenneth Branagh for Belfast, which is,
okay.
I mean, I think there's an outside chance for King Richard or The Worst Person in the World as well. But Belfast is a story by Kenneth Branagh. It's semi autobiographical about his childhood in Ireland before his family escaped to England. It's presented in black and white about white people's social turmoil. Like, it checks all the boxes, is
It
what I'm
does.
trying to
It
say.
really does. Yeah.
So I'm going to check off Belfast.
Yes.
And so, last but not least, we come to the category of Best Picture, in which there are 10 nominees, and they are in alphabetical order: Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story.
Hmm.
Simon, do you have a pick?
Absolutely. Based on the 10 minutes of Don't Look Up, it should definitely be Don't Look Up as best picture Oscar winner. Like I've watched a lot of movies in my life, and there's very few I've turned off because they've been shit. This is one of them. Like I didn't make it through that movie. So I'm surprised it's here. I haven't seen Dune. For me personally, I don't think I've seen any of these actually. Have I not
So
seen any of these?
I
I've seen
haven't
half of
seen,
one of them.
I haven't seen Coda, I haven't seen Drive My Car, and I haven't seen Licorice Pizza or Nightmare Alley, but I've seen the rest. And Don't Look Up, I don't think deserves to be there. Um, Coda, I'm surprised to see there, but I haven't seen it, so I don't want to judge it. I think this is probably the Power of the Dog's award to lose, personally.
I think I think you're right, but I would be much happier if Spielberg won for West Side Story.
Yeah, so
I
this
know
is
both.
this is the category actually that he sets a record in. So not only did he set a record by being nominated in 6 discrete decades as best director, but this makes him the most nominated person for best picture. He has 11 nominations for best picture in his resume, which is just nuts.
It is
But
crazy. I don't know. I feel like if I sat down over the next week and watched every single one of these movies, I'm fairly sure I would come out the other side thinking West Side Story is the best one. Like I love Spielberg and I love musicals and I specifically love West Side Story, the original. So I don't see any reason why I would love any other movie more than Spielberg doing his favorite musical from when he was a child. Like he's been thinking about this by his own admission for like his entire life, and I've heard really good things about it. So
yeah,
for me, I would love for him to win.
well, I still think I'm checking off the Power of the Dog as the winner. I would be equally happy with West Side Story personally. I again, I don't think Don't Look Up should be on the list.
Hmm.
I think the
Why
thing
is
about
it on the list? What has everyone missed about this the film that's on the Best Picture nomination?
I
What
don't
do you
know.
think the reason is?
I don't know, but people, from what I understand, the reactions to this film have been either revulsion, like me, or because I just think it's. And to be fair, I'm the guy who usually says that like we live in unsettled times. Feel free to be unsubtle. But this is a movie that, to me, the big flaw with isn't that it's not subtle, it's that it's angry at the audience instead of for them. If that makes sense.
Hmm.
You know, like it should be angry at the institute. It should be a movie that inspires anger in the audience so that we act, but instead it's angry at us for allowing this to happen.
Hmm.
And I think that that makes it a shitty movie. The one thing I found funny in it is that there's the whole running gag where there's in the very beginning of the film, the two main characters go to the White House, and a general grabs them some snacks and charges them $10 each for the snacks. And it turns out that the snacks are free. And Jennifer Lawrence's character spends the rest of the film, like every time it cuts back to her, she's like, "Why did he charge us for the snacks?" And I think it's a really well executed running joke. And
Hmm.
I think the one clever thing in the writing besides that is that the general who does that to them, his character name is, and I'm not making this up, General Themes. Which is just, like that's the theme of the movie, and his name is General Themes. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
it is otherwise like, and even that, like, that is funny, but it is also like really dumb, really stupidly on the nose.
Yeah.
And I don't get it, but people tend to either like it or hate it, and I didn't like it. So,
Hmm.
um, the thing to remember, I think, too, about Best Picture is that unlike the other ones, all of the other nominees, is that when you look at, say, like Best Director or Best Cinematography, then within those categories, that branch of the Academy votes,
Hmm.
right? So only directors vote for Best Director. And they just vote. Like they get one vote, they choose who they want to win, right? And it's majority
Hmm.
wins. The Best Director or the Best Picture award is a ranked ballot, and everyone gets to vote. And the reason you sometimes get weird choices, I think, is that it's very possible in a ranked ballot for the number three pick to be the winner. Because if
Hmm.
everyone picks the same film for number three but picks a different one and two, guess which film ends up with the most points?
Hmm.
Which I
Yeah.
think is how you end up with your Green Books winning, right? Like it's
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so I think it's a much harder category to call because I think it's weird there are 10 Best Picture nominees and only 5 Best Director nominees because the director is ultimately the person who shapes a
Hmm.
film. And
Hmm.
so I would immediately say if you were going to eliminate 5 nominees from the Best Picture race, you should eliminate the 5 that aren't also nominated for Best Director.
Yes.
Would be I don't think that's how it works, but that is my personal thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think, like I say, just to sum all that up, that the power of the dog is it's that movie's award to lose
It is.
at
You
this
do get the
point.
feeling it's gonna just it has the feeling it's gonna sweep. Do you know what I mean? You just feel
Yeah,
like it's the kind of thing that is gonna just take everything.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, well, that's all of the Oscar nominees that we were going to talk
Wow.
about. I
Yeah.
did you fill out the ballot as you went? I filled out my ballot as I went. So,
Oh, I thought you were doing for the both of us. It's
oh,
okay.
okay,
I can remember my choices. That's fine.
okay,
Um yeah, I do like the Oscars, but I do feel a little detached from it
yeah,
as the years go by. But especially as it's so hard to watch things at the best of times, especially now with the pandemic on. It's I haven't felt comfortable going to the cinema. I haven't been able to just nip out because stuff, and I I feel like I would like to watch more of these before I actually get angry at the awards process
yeah.
when my favorites don't win. I think West Side Story is a big one for me. I would really love to see West Side Story before the Oscars.
Well, the good
And
news is on that front is that you'll be able to because the
oh
Oscars
yeah,
are
yeah,
on March 27th, and West Side Story is coming to Disney Plus on March the 2nd.
she's fantastic. I have no idea why it's coming so soon, and it's not a premium rental or one of their like pay $35 and you can stream it deals?
I don't think so, and I think that's because ultimately, and this is due to multiple factors, but ultimately it was a box office flop, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
it didn't even make its production budget back. So,
right.
um, I think they're happy just to throw it on there and let critics adore it, and hopefully
Yeah,
word of mouth build and all that good stuff. Um, but yeah, the only other
cool.
thing I'll say, so I don't know what I would swap in for Best Picture. I'd probably, if it were me, I'd add Tick Tick Boom. I know there's a lot of people out there who
Hmm.
would love to see Spider-Man in the Best Picture race. I haven't seen Spider-Man, but I can pretty much guarantee I wouldn't share that opinion at this point.
Hmm.
Um, but I can see why people who love it want us to be there. But for everyone who's disappointed that Spider-Man isn't nominated for Best Picture, it's made over $1.7 billion worldwide, so everyone knows. you know, it
Yeah,
doesn't it doesn't need a gold statue to be a success.
it's just beating Avatar, isn't it? Which is
I actually haven't
pretty
checked in a couple of
pretty
days.
phenomenal. Yeah, I agree with you totally. I'd love to see Tick Tick Boom in there. I think it's a brilliantly made film, and it's a really precisely made film that captures the energy and emotion of a musical in a way that most movie musicals don't. And so I would have been really happy for it to be nominated. But hey,
Yep. Anything else you want to say about the Oscars? There's
no, no.
one other very small interesting fact about the Oscars this year, and that is
Okay,
that
go for it.
all 5 nominees in the category of Best Actress do not appear in a film that was also nominated for Best Picture, which is
Oh,
apparently maybe the first time that's happened, or the first time it's happened in a long while, anyway.
the best. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that. Yeah, yeah. Good. One thing I would like to say is that you made a comment on Twitter that I cannot stop thinking about, and that's when there was the revelation that the Oscars is going to have hosts again, but who should it be? And you just said it should be the Muppets, and I'm like, that is the best. That's the best answer. And then I was lying in bed and I couldn't sleep, and my mind just went down that road of what would that look like, and it got to the point of all of the best song nominations. You know, they play them each year. They have the band playing the song. Well, it
Hmm.
should be the Muppets playing covers of the songs with the Muppets singing
I
the vocal
mean,
parts of the songs. And I was like, they should go all in on Muppets take over the Oscars. How amazing would that be? It would be incredible.
it would be incredible. Um, I think the Muppets should host everything, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Well, here I'm going to read off a couple other things that I think are interesting facts about this year's Oscars. Apparently, Troy Kutzer is the first deaf person to be nominated for an acting award since Marley Matlin in 1986.
Cool.
As we mentioned, Ryosuke Hamaguchi became the third Japanese director to be nominated for Best Director. Flea is the first film ever to be nominated for Best Animated International and Documentary Feature at the same time. Kenneth Branagh becomes the first person to have been nominated in a total of 7 different categories in his life, which
Oh,
is super interesting.
that's cool.
Spielberg, as we previously mentioned, uh, now nominated in 6 different decades and the most nominated person for Best Picture, but also West Side Story is the only the second time that a second adaptation of the same source material has been nominated for the same award as its predecessor. So Mutiny on the Bounty one was nominated for Best Picture, and so was the original of that, and
Uh-huh.
both West Side Story and West Side Story were both nominated.
Wow.
Interesting. Kate Blanchett becomes the first female actor in history to have credited roles in 9 Best Picture nominees, beating Olivia de Havilland. Jesse Buckley and Olivia Coleman make history as being the third time ever that 2 individuals have been nominated for portraying the same character in the same film.
That's cool.
Yeah, And one other big piece of representation here, Kristen Stewart and Ariana DeBose mark the first time that two openly LGBTQ people have been nominated in the same year, which is cool.
Hey.
And then also there's that interesting couples trivia where Penelope Cruz and Javier
Yes,
Bardem are both nominated, and Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons.
that's really cool. They
So
can
yeah,
both have shiny matchy statues, maybe.
I guess it's one of those things where like I find all these weird records to be really super interesting, but the Oscars have had, this will be their 94th Oscars, and it's bound to be something like that every year at this point. so,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
anyway, our congratulations to all the nominees. I'm sure you're all listening, and yeah,
Good
anything
luck.
else? Anything else you want to add to our
No,
this is our
I.
longest episode in a while.
It is a long in a while. No, I do enjoy the Oscars, so I'm looking forward to it. But no, I, I'm trying to be less emotionally invested because the things I want to win never win. I have a very distinct taste in movies, apparently. It's another year where Ghost Rider: Spirits of Vengeance hasn't had its retrospective Oscar, so one time it will happen. I think there should be a stunt category. That's my thing. I think we are past the time where stunts should be recognized, and there
I
should
think
be a stunt category.
I think most of us are on the same page when it comes to that, except for the old men who run the academy.
It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. Okay, well, we should probably finish up, but first, some messages.
Well, thank you all for listening. As always, we'd like to say we love you very much. And if you'd like to support us, we would love if you could give us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you'd like to support us in a more direct way, we have both a Patreon and a Ko-fi, and also a PayPal, which is 3 things, not 2. Um, if you want to just give us a review of any kind, though, those do help immeasurably. The better reviews help put us in front of more eyeballs, which puts us in front of more earballs. So please do that.
Yes, the more airballs, the better. The more
Yeah.
you pay us, the more we'll talk. Maybe that's a threat, but it could be a promise.
Yeah, it's both. It's both things. Um, as always, you can also catch up with us on Twitter at AwesomeFridayCA, and Simon is at Temporary Pen. I am Matthew AF. And this episode coming to you from the unceded territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And I think that is all of the things. So thank you very much for listening one more time. And we will see you in a week and also in a month for the Oscars.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.